I paid my stepfather's medical bills and spent every weekend driving him to dialysis. One morning, I found the will on his desk, everything left to his son. Not even a thank you for me. When I asked why, he looked me in the eye and said, "Blood first. You were just convenient." That night, I made a copy of something he forgot was in the basement. What I did next? My name's Darren. I'm 43, living in Dayton, Ohio. Been working in heating and cooling for over 20 years. I've always been reliable. I don't drink, don't do drugs, and I pay my taxes on time. I'm the guy people call when their furnace breaks down in the middle of a snowstorm. My mom married Ron when I was 13. He was one of those clean-cut, polished guys who never really looked like he belonged in our family. Wore button-ups even on Sundays when nobody left the house. He wasn't mean. Just cold. Polite to a fault. Never raised his voice, never raised his hand. But also never raised me. He tolerated me. That's what it felt like. When Mom died, I was 19. Ron stayed in the house. We talked sometimes, had dinner maybe once a year. I didn't owe him anything. But when he got sick, stage 4 kidney failure, and the social worker called me because I was listed as emergency contact, I didn't hesitate. He was alone. Jesse, his son from a previous marriage, had been gone for years. Last I heard, Jesse was down in Tampa, selling used cars or something shady like that. They'd had a blowout a few years back. Something about a loan Ron never paid back or a property deal gone bad. I don't know. I didn't ask. Ron couldn't drive anymore. He couldn't cook for himself. He needed help. So I stepped in. I thought it was the right thing to do. I drove him to dialysis every Tuesday and Friday. Picked him up at 7:15 sharp, brought him back at noon. Sat with him some days when he felt too weak to stand. Cleaned out his gutters, fixed his garage door, paid out of pocket for some of his medications when insurance gave him the runaround. I never asked for anything. I figured if I was ever in that position, I'd want someone to be there for me too. 3 years of this. Then one day, I go over to check on him, bring him groceries and make sure he's eaten. His office door is open, which is rare. He keeps that thing locked like it's Fort Knox. I figure maybe he forgot to close it. I'm not snooping. I'm just checking in. But as I walk past, I see a document on the desk. It's his will. I stop. I don't touch it. But it's right there in front of me. His name, Jesse's name. Everything, the house, the savings, the truck, even some land in Hocking Hills I didn't even know he still owned, all going to Jesse. Not even a mention of me. Wait. No, at the bottom, in small print, I see it. No inheritance due. Provided support voluntarily. No blood relation. I swear my mouth went dry. I read it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. After all I did. 3 years of wiping up after him, of late-night phone calls when he couldn't breathe, of using my own money so he wouldn't skip meds. I'd spent weekends giving up my life so he wouldn't die alone. And I wasn't expecting a mansion. But not even a thank you? Not even a single thing? That afternoon, after his dialysis, I sat him down. I asked him straight. "Hey Ron. I saw the will. Just wanted to ask why. Why Jesse gets everything." He didn't even look up from his cup of tea. "Blood first," he said. "You were just convenient. That was it." He sipped his tea and turned on the TV like we were talking about the weather. I left without saying a word. Got in my truck, drove halfway across town, and parked behind the Walmart because I didn't want to go home. I sat there in silence. Thought about everything. Thought about my mom, how she would have felt seeing this. Thought about all those Sunday mornings I came to cook him breakfast. How many family holidays I skipped because Ron needed help. I gave up vacations, overtime, even dates just to make sure he was okay. Convenient. That word kept echoing in my head like someone hitting a steel drum. Later that night I went back. Told him his furnace was making noise again, which it wasn't, just so I had an excuse to go down to the basement. I told him I'd handle it. And that's where I found the box. It was duct-taped and shoved behind a metal shelving unit. Looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I remembered it from my teenage years. Back then, it used to hold old receipts and business files. Ron had run a contractor business in the late 90s. It shut down pretty suddenly, something about taxes. But something told me not to ignore this. I pulled the box out and opened it. Old manila folders. Faded labels. Some receipts. But then I saw an envelope, yellowed with age. With the word confidential, scrawled in black marker. Inside, documents. Property contracts. Old copies. Some signed, some not. A purchase agreement for a property in Lima, but the dates didn't match up. One version had a signature and no stamp. The other had a different date. In the corner, scribbled in pen, "Backdate this one, J." My heart started pounding. I kept digging. Found tax returns. Some hadn't been filed. Some had 2 different copies, one with way more money than the other. Found old bank statements. Then I hit the jackpot, a USB drive in a plastic bag at the bottom of the box. I took it home. Plugged it into my laptop. Scanned documents. Old contracts. Fake invoices. A Word document titled, "Do not open." I opened it. It was a draft letter. Written like he was talking to a lawyer. He admitted to cooking the books at his old business. Faking jobs. Pocketing deposits. Jesse was mentioned more than once, wiring money, signing off on permits, backdating signatures. One part made me freeze. Charles Gentry is threatening legal action. I told Jesse to bury it. It was his idea to file the shell invoice. If this goes south, I need a clean version of the books. Charles Gentry. That was my uncle. My mom's brother. I remembered him. He lost his house in the early 2000s. Said it was a bad investment. I hadn't known the details. But now I had them. Ron and Jesse had ripped him off. And Ron never paid him back. My uncle died in 2012, broke and bitter. Ron knew exactly what he was doing. He stole from my family. And then he called me convenient. I printed out every document on that drive. Made copies. Stored them in a fireproof lockbox I kept at my house. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. I didn't talk to Ron for 3 days after that night. Still did the driving, still picked up his meds, but I didn't say more than a few words. He didn't ask. It was like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. I wasn't just the guy who got cut out of a will. I was the guy who found proof that my stepfather and his son had screwed over my mother's only brother, and probably more people. And I had it all: emails, records, a paper trail. They thought it was buried. It wasn't. And I had more than just anger now. I had leverage. That weekend, Jesse showed up. Out of nowhere, after 5 years. Walked right into Ron's house like nothing had happened. I was dropping off groceries when he came through the front door. He looked around, gave me a smug nod like he owned the place. I didn't say a word. Just handed Ron the receipt and left. But I sat in my truck and waited. My gut told me something was off. After 20 minutes, Jesse walked back out, carrying a stack of folders. I followed him. Stayed 3 cars behind. He drove straight to a self-storage unit on the east side of town, one of those places with keypad gates and cameras everywhere. He typed in a code, went inside. 10 minutes later, he came out empty-handed. Whatever he dropped off, it mattered. And now I knew where he was hiding it. The next day, I made a call. A friend of mine, Nate, used to do loss prevention. Now he works private security. I told him I needed to get eyes on a unit without anyone knowing. Just to see who was coming and going. He didn't ask questions. Said he'd handle it. While he set that up, I kept digging. Went through more of Ron's old files when he was asleep. Found a notebook. Old names, numbers, addresses. Some were scratched out. Others had little notes next to them. Filed complaint, won't press, paid partial. One name stood out, Richard Egan, Cincinnati, $15,000, threatened suit. I looked him up. He was 72 now. Ran a small carpentry business back then. Still had a working number listed. I called him, told him I was looking into some old contractor fraud connected to Ron's business. He got quiet real fast. "You're related to Ron?" he asked. "I was his stepson. Long time ago." He laughed, but it wasn't a funny laugh. "Yeah, I remember that crook. Took 15 grand from me in '01. Said he'd remodel 2 properties. Did about a week of demo, then disappeared. Wouldn't return calls. Sent me a letter saying the job was cancelled. Never gave me a dime back. I asked if he ever took legal action. Tried. Sheriff's office said it was a civil matter. I didn't have the money to fight it. Plus I heard he filed bankruptcy after that. I thanked him and hung up. That night, I opened the flash drive again and found what I was hoping for, a fake invoice with Egan's name on it. A contract with Jesse's signature dated 2 weeks before the job supposedly started. They faked the entire agreement and blamed a supplier for the delay. Piece by piece, I was putting it together. Ron and Jesse had a system. Fake a job, take the money, delay with excuses, then vanish. Most of the victims didn't have the means to sue, and by the time they got around to filing a complaint, Ron had already shut down the company. Claimed bankruptcy. Moved on. And now Jesse was back. For what? To collect? That night, Nate called me. Said he reviewed the camera footage from the storage place. Jesse had visited 3 times in 1 week. Each time, he brought something different. Folders, a laptop case, what looked like a lockbox. I asked Nate to get me the unit number. He hesitated, but gave it to me. Said I was on my own from here. Unit 117. I waited 2 days. Then I went back at 3 a.m. with a bump key and gloves. I know how that sounds. I'm not a criminal. But after what I saw, I didn't trust the legal system to handle this. Not without proof. And I wasn't going to walk away again. Inside the unit was a single shelf, 1 desk, a metal box with a key lock, and 3 banker's boxes labeled 2000 to 2002. Clean copies, J. Originals. I didn't take anything. Just opened the lid and took pictures of everything I could. Copies of permits. ID scans. Even blank templates for invoices with signatures already filled in. I found a folder labeled Charles Gentry, filed copy, shred after suit ends. It hadn't been shredded. There it was. Proof that Ron and Jesse knew they'd screwed my uncle. That they kept evidence of it in case they needed it to blackmail someone. I snapped over 200 photos that night. Put the originals back exactly as they were. Locked the unit. Left. I didn't sleep. I just sat in my kitchen, reading and rereading what I had. It was solid. Enough to start real trouble. But it still wasn't revenge. Revenge would come after. 2 days after I went into that storage unit, Jesse came knocking on my door. Middle of the day, like he didn't have a care in the world. Wearing a golf shirt, sunglasses on his head, holding a drink from Sonic like we were just 2 guys catching up. You got a minute? He asked, smiling like he thought I'd forgotten everything. I let him talk, but I didn't let him in. Dad says you've been acting off. He started. I told him it's probably stress. You've been doing a lot for him. I just nodded. Let him dig his own hole. Look, he said, leaning on my porch rail. I know you've been a big help these past few years. And I know he's not the best at saying thanks. But he's still my father. You get that, right? I get a lot of things, I said. Like how convenient it is that you show up right when he's writing checks again. He smirked. It was quick, like he didn't mean to, but I caught it. He pushed off the railing and looked at me. I'm not here to fight. But I'd appreciate it if you stayed out of things you don't understand. That told me everything I needed to know. He knew I'd found something. After he left, I started moving. First, I sent anonymous packets to 2 people. The first was to Mr. Richard Egan in Cincinnati, full copies of the invoice, the contract, the bank transfer Jesse had signed. Everything with his name on it. I included a note. Statute of limitations may be up, but this man never apologized. Maybe it's time to remind him what he did. The second went to the local IRS field office in Columbus. Inside, financial documents from the flash drive and photos from the storage unit. I highlighted the fake invoices and the inconsistent tax returns. I didn't put my name on either one. Then I waited. 3 days later, Ron called me. I let it go to voicemail. The message was short. Need to talk. Urgent. Next thing I know, Jesse's number pops up. I don't answer. 2 hours later, Ron's neighbor, Denise, calls me. Says there was a scene at the house. Some guy in a suit showed up, asked Ron questions. She didn't know much, but said Ron looked like he was having a panic attack on the porch. I drove by that evening. Their car was gone, but the trash can was full of shredded paper. I got out and dug through it. Found pieces of what looked like the same confession letter I had copied. They were too shredded to be useful, to anyone but me, anyway. I already had the whole thing on my laptop. That night, I opened a new file. Called it the list. I started writing down every victim I could find from the notes, the documents, the files on the drive. Over 24 names. Some had dollar amounts next to them. Some had settled or a no contact. I made copies of their files, addresses, anything I could confirm. I started mailing 1 new packet a day. Anonymous. No return address. Some to the victims, some to local law offices, 1 to the Ohio Attorney General's office. And then came the next twist. Ron collapsed. Kidney failure complications, they said. He was in the ICU for a week. Jesse took over everything, medical decisions, power of attorney, even his mail. I wasn't listed anywhere. I wasn't family, remember? I called the hospital once. The nurse said Jesse told them not to give out any info. He didn't even tell me Ron had passed until a week later. Got a text. Dad's gone. Service is Monday. You don't need to come. That was it. I didn't reply. I didn't go. But I made one more move. I found the lawyer who wrote the will. His name was Bernard Dills. He ran a small practice in Dayton, mostly wills and estates. I walked in and asked for a meeting. Told his assistant I had concerns about fraud related to a client's will and estate. He came out with a stiff smile. You're the stepson? Yep. I'm the one who was convenient. His smile faded. I handed him a folder. Inside were documents showing Jesse had power of attorney before Ron became fully incapacitated. But I included one more thing, a signed note dated 2 weeks after Ron's doctor officially declared him mentally impaired. In it, Jesse supposedly got Ron to amend the will, changing a few details in his favor, increasing his cut of the retirement account. The dates didn't match. The handwriting didn't match either. I knew Ron's writing. It was stiff and clean. The one in this letter was loose, lazy, and Jesse style. I had his real signature from the storage unit for comparison. Bernard didn't say much, but he took the file. By the time I got home, a voicemail was waiting for me. It was Jesse. Where the hell do you get off? You think this little witch hunt is going to change anything? He was my dad. You were nothing. Just some stray my mother dragged in. You better stop, or I swear to God. I saved that voicemail too. He had no idea I wasn't close to done. A month after Ron's funeral, the house was listed for sale. Jesse moved fast. Too fast. He showed up in a black Mercedes the day the for sale sign went up. I watched from my truck parked across the street. He walked around like he owned the world, wore a suit jacket, chewing gum, sunglasses on. Smirking. I waited until the realtor posted the listing online. Then I made my move. I contacted a law firm in Columbus that specializes in civil fraud and elder financial abuse. Not just some random firm, this one had a partner named Samantha Gentry. My cousin. Charles Gentry's daughter. She'd moved away years ago, and I hadn't spoken to her in a while. But after everything I found, I figured she deserved to know the truth. I didn't start with the documents. I started with my story. What Ron did to her dad. What Jesse helped cover up. The fake business. The money taken from good people. The lie that cost her dad his retirement and his home. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she said, "Send me everything." I did. 10 days later, Samantha filed a petition to freeze the estate assets due to suspected fraud. I didn't even know that was possible, but apparently if you can prove that someone obtained assets by deception, especially while the person was mentally impaired, a court can step in and stop the transfer. Jesse didn't take it well. He called me again. I didn't pick up, but the voicemail this time was shaky. "You've got no idea what you're doing. You're playing with fire. That house is mine. He wanted me to have it. You're gonna regret this, Darren." I played that voicemail for Samantha. She added it to the file. Then came the media. One of the victims I'd sent a packet to was a retired reporter named Jean Myers. She'd lost $20,000 in a remodeling job Ron never started. She'd never gotten justice. When she saw her name in the files I sent, she decided it was time people knew. She wrote a piece for a local news site. The headline? "The contractor scam that lasted a decade, how a sick man and his son stole from dozens, and almost got away with it." They didn't name me. But they named Ron. And Jesse. And the company. And the victims. She included quotes from old clients, photos of the storage unit documents, and even pieces of the confession letter Ron tried to shred. The story spread fast. Then the IRS got involved. They launched a fraud investigation into the old business records I'd sent. Turns out, even if the statute of limitations for civil court is over, tax fraud stays open longer if there's evidence of concealment, and Jesse had kept documents hidden in that unit. They had bank statements, forged documents, and wire transfers. Enough to open a case. Jesse was hit with a full audit. The house sale froze. The accounts were locked. The estate lawyer, Bernard, stepped back and submitted a statement saying he was misled about Ron's mental state at the time of the amended will. Samantha pushed forward with a lawsuit on behalf of all the known victims, over 26 people. She named Jesse personally as a co-conspirator in the fraud and sought full financial restitution. Jesse tried to settle. He offered them $75,000 to make it go away. They said no. The court forced him to open the storage unit and turn over all the contents. I knew what was inside. I'd already seen it. And that's what buried him. The fake documents. The backdated contracts. Jesse's name on letters written to banks pretending to be clients. It was all there. When it went to trial, Samantha destroyed him. She put Ron's history out for everyone to see. Showed the files, the lies, the checks Jesse cashed using the business's name after it had shut down. She read out loud the line from the will that said I was just convenient. The courtroom was dead silent when she did that. Jesse didn't go to jail, but the court found him civilly liable. He lost the house. Lost the car. Was ordered to pay back $480,000 in restitution to the victims. Samantha made sure every single one of them got something. Then came the final piece. I never wanted Ron's house. I didn't want his truck or his stupid fishing cabin. But there was one thing I did want. That lake property in Hocking Hills. My mom used to take me camping out there when I was a kid. Before Ron bought it, before he turned it into some rental scam with Jesse. It was the last place I ever remember my family being happy. After the court forced the sale of the estate assets, the lake property went up for auction. Samantha bought it. Then signed it over to me. Free and clear. She said. For Uncle Charles. And my dad. I didn't cry right there, but I came close. Jesse? He moved out of state. Word is he's working at a used tire shop in Alabama. Tried to file bankruptcy, but the court blocked it until his restitution is paid. He'll be paying off those debts for the rest of his life. Ron's name is dirt in Dayton now. No one remembers him as the quiet handyman anymore. They remember the scammer who took money from families, and the stepson he spit on who turned it all around. As for me, I still work HVAC. Still fix furnaces and crawl through attics. But I spend weekends out at the lake cabin now. My cabin. I fixed it up myself. Sometimes I sit on the porch, look out at the water, and think about how it all started. With a man who looked me in the eye and said I was just convenient. Well, I might have been convenient. But I was also the one who ended it.